Hi everyone, my name's Anna Diaz and I am here with Brigid from the YAC, right?
Yes, I'm from the Youth Advocacy Council for Epilepsy Alliance, Florida.
So today, well, let's just start with this because we have actually both had epilepsy since the age of 6, which I just found out today, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
That we kind of cool, but sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But we're actually going to talk a little bit about you today.
Yeah.
About your story, where you are today, getting a freaking master's in, I already forgot the fancy word for it.
Clinical mental health counseling.
But we're going to talk about, where do you want to start? Do you want to start, you started having seizures at the age of 6.
Yeah.
So do you even you remember like your first seizure and how all that happened?
I barely do. The seizures that I have, I don't really remember them. So I don't remember having it, but it was on New Year's Eve when I was 6 years old at my grandmother's house.
New Year's Eve is a sucky day.
Yeah, it's
to start having seizures and find out
not
your
a good
kid...
way to start off the new year.
Yeah.
But and no one in my family even knew what that was at the time. My parents, we never knew anyone who had it. Family members never had it, so it was like kind of, she's like almost spazzing on the ground and drooling, like, what is this, what do we do? Mm-hmm. So they called 911, and even in the beginning the doctors didn't really know, no one knew what was going on. So it was very much a time, especially for my parents and for me, of like, what is this strange thing that's just kind of appeared out of the blue?
Yeah, and that's kind of like something that I do a lot is train people to recognize seizures. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that like a lot of the time people, like I went to a presentation the other day and one of the ladies called seizures like fits, because that's what they used to call it. And like they used to call it fits, an evil spirit like possessing your body. As weird as that sounds, but it's true. That's what older people thought it was. So I'm sure your parents were like, what's going on with my kid? Yeah. And they probably, seizures and epilepsy was like the last thing on their mind. Even if you said they didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was like perfect basically up until then. I was in first grade. I kind of pretty much just started first grade, and I was on track with learning abilities, everything like that. Nothing was ever wrong. So it was really just like in a flash, everything in my life and my family's life changed.
Yeah. And then it puts your family through a lot too.
Yeah.
I've learned that for sure. Like it's not just the person that has epilepsy. It affects like everybody around the person, their entire support system. Definitely. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Like my parents both worked full time. So, I had seizures starting at 6, and we found the right medication combination at around 10. So, both of them worked full time, and I was in the hospital a lot for, like, I think I would be in for, it could be anywhere from 2 weeks to a few days to, during school. So it's like they were working. They had 2 other little kids. I was 6. I had a 4-year-old sister and a 2-year-old sister. So they were dealing with them, work, and me being in and out of the hospital and having trouble in school and stuff like that. So it definitely affects the entire family.
That's a full-time job.
They were
with a full-time job.
Busy.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
But handled it well. You've had seizures, you said, for 4 years, right?
I had them for about 4 years, yeah, until we found the right medication combination.
And that took, I'm assuming, that those entire 4 years, or?
Yeah, it was pretty much all of elementary school. I had them a lot in school, during class. There were times, I had one during gym class that I remember. My gym teacher literally had to carry me and run me to the nurse's office.
Oh, no.
And, or I'd have one at recess. I so vividly remember. I don't remember having it, but I remember, people who have seizures know that feeling kind of that you get right before it. And I had one during recess. And I remember they had to, because they wouldn't allow me to walk up. They brought down a wheelchair, had to wheel me up, like, into the school. And I remember, like, almost, like, refusing. I did not want to go in the wheelchair because I feel like it it makes, at least for me, it made me feel so much different already than the other kids.
Yeah.
That I didn't need everyone else in the playground staring at me. As I was being wheeled up, they had to make me sit in it. But it's stuff like that where, can definitely, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, make you feel different than others in a way.
Yeah, and like I remember we were talking earlier, and yeah, it makes, like, I was isolated for a very, very long time. And yes, it was kind of by choice because you feel so different. You don't know anybody who has this condition, who has seizures. At least I didn't.
Same with me.
Yeah, but now, like, there's things like the organization and the support groups that they run and the Youth Advocacy Council, and like, how many other people do you know with epilepsy now? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, it's not such a strange thing anymore. And it's a good thing that we both kind of grew out of that, and now we help others that have epilepsy and try to, educate them. But one of the worst things you can do, at least for me, like having epilepsy and seizures, is make me feel any different than everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I specifically was very, very into sports, very into outside activities, because I didn't want to have any kind of special treatment or like the more time on tests and things like that we were talking about.
IEPs and things like that. Because I had to take, especially in elementary school, when, you have, at least for me, the way it was, we had the same teacher all day. So during, the math portion of class, I'd have to get up and go to, the quote unquote special kind of classes that they had. So that was always embarrassing in a way of, okay, I have to get up and leave, and everyone else knows where I'm going pretty much. They know I'm going to a different type class.
Well, and seizures in general, for me, not as much anymore, but for me, seizures they're embarrassing. Like in the trainings that we do, or that I do, I always mention that seizures are like really embarrassing because I have personal experience with it. And all the other classmates, like grown adults sometimes don't know what's going on. So all these kids are watching you like on the ground, maybe, or in your chair just dozing off, because those were like the kinds that I had. But if they're worse than usual, they're like, what's happening to this girl? What is she like? She's so like, she's looking so weird. And you just sometimes I just get in my own head and think all these things that they're probably thinking, and they're really not. But for me, it was a very embarrassing thing. But you're controlled with your seizures, and you didn't need to have any surgeries, any devices or anything like that.
No, I'm very lucky that it didn't get to that point. I'm on Keppra and Lamictal now. Okay. It was very much an experiment when it came to medication. Those few years, it was just on and off. Some that had side effects that were like, oh my God, this is not right. Get her off of this now. It was just absolutely like crazy.
Do you know like a rough number of like medications that you went through? Because I know mine. I went through them all. Like
I know. They found out I was like allergic to a few. That must have sucked. Was it? I think it was trileptal and felbutol. I had bad reactions to, like allergic reactions to and stuff. So I don't even know. It was a lot though. It was 4 years worth of experiments. So.
And going off of medications. For those of you that don't know, if you have a condition and you try and go off a medication that is helping, because it's kind of it's hard to tell which medications are helping, because you're usually on more than one. So when you try and go off of one, like, oh, you're doing good, you can go off of this, and then you start having seizures, it's like, what is this doctor doing? Like, he knows nothing. And he's like, it's a process. It's a very long process, and like it's very emotional. It's very like, a lot of it's very depressing. Like, do you struggle with that? Anxiety, depression, things like that?
Not as much, I guess. Anxiety, just because of, getting a master's is pretty intense. But when I was younger and was having them, like, I didn't have friends. I didn't really sit with anyone at lunch. I didn't play with anyone much in the playground. So it was, as you said, pretty isolating. And because, there was a girl in school who literally told me she didn't want to be friends with me because I had a medical condition. So, when you hear that as a kid, and, there were other kids who kind of, looked at me weird, that definitely made me self-conscious about it and pull away from a lot of stuff.
And pull away from just talking about it in general.
I just joined the Youth Advocacy Council about probably 5 months ago or so, and this is the first time I've ever really talked about it. Like, I didn't talk about it to anyone in middle school and high school, unless people saw me have a seizure they didn't know. Even college, I didn't tell anyone. So this is really my first kind of experience coming out with it.
And I appreciate that. No, a lot, because you're going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, that's what I am hoping that I could do through this, because I know that I felt very alone when I had it. And I think a lot of the reason I didn't talk about it ever was because I never knew anyone else who had it. I never even heard of anyone else who had it. So it was very much like just quiet about it. And so hopefully, by other people hearing my story, your story, other people that we'll have on this podcast story, that'll make people who do have it feel hopefully a little bit better about themselves and know that it's not just them.
It's not just them, and that there's help, and there's support groups, and there's services that a lot of organizations can help you with.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's definitely something that I want to mention, because I didn't know about this organization until like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, basically like my whole life.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of there's options out there for people with epilepsy, for people really with any condition. There's a lot of services out there that I see that people know nothing about.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like a secret like society and like a secret world. If you don't work with like nonprofits, you have no clue. At least I didn't, but it's really cool. And I think with you telling your story and how medications did work for you, because for a lot of people medications don't work. So for 1 in 3 people, medication is not going to work. They're not going to respond to it. But there's always some that do. Yeah. And you're one of those that got extremely lucky. Unfortunately, you did have to suffer from seizures and the emotional trauma that comes with it. But a lot of people, they do respond to medication, and they didn't have to go through as much as other people.
Yeah.
But still, it's a condition that you live with. And tell me a little bit more about what you're doing now with epilepsy. You're getting a master's. That's crazy.
I know. I got my undergrad in criminal justice from the University of Scranton, and then I just moved out here. I'm in my second semester, first year of getting my master's degree in clinical mental health at Nova Southeastern University.
And you're going to Nova?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yes.
I've been there a couple times, like to drop off information and stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're so cool.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a beautiful campus, definitely, and great teachers. I've had amazing teachers.
Yeah. And you've kind of caught up with learning a little bit, you said.
Yeah, because when I went into middle school, for me, middle school started at 6th grade, elementary school ended at 5th grade. It's probably different, right? It's different.
I think it's just,
I ended mainly
elementary at 5th grade, yeah.
Okay, maybe it was because I transferred schools, because sometimes, all the grades are together, so I transferred schools. But, going into 6th grade, I was at, like, a 4th grade reading level, writing level, math level. So I had to kind of move forward while also trying to catch up on those 2 years of education that I lost. So, even while I was going through it, the doctors weren't sure, like, how it would take a toll, and they didn't know what level of education I'd be able to get, whether I'd be able to go just to the, middle school or the high school that was in my town. So I'm very lucky that I was able to catch up while filling in, and I got into college, and then I got into my master's program. But I'd say the number one thing was work ethic, was really working hard. I wouldn't be here if I didn't
Absolutely
really want to go for it.
Yeah, no, and that's something that a lot of people with seizures and epilepsy struggle with, is learning and retaining information.
Yeah,
definitely. I know for me, I don't even remember what I wore yesterday. And that's like 100% honest. I don't remember. But like people with epilepsy, like they won't remember assignments. I won't remember assignments or information that was given during class. I mean, I won't remember something, so things need to be repeated. So some people do struggle a lot with those things and with learning, because you have to, absorb the information.
Yeah.
But it's so awesome that you're getting through it and you're doing awesome.
Yeah,
Like,
I had to find the right way that I learned. I'm definitely an intense note taker. I have,
Same.
almost the whole class written down, because like you said, I know when I get home, I'm going to be like, what is it exactly that we talked about?
Yeah, what did he talk about?
Yeah, I have like, whole notebooks of notes, and I just was experimenting with, okay, do I work better when I make flashcards? Do I work better just looking over notes and repeating them over and over and over? Do I do better writing? So it was a lot of finding out what worked for me,
which is basically the whole experience with epilepsy, just finding what works.
Yeah,
I hear ya. Is there anything else you wanted to share to maybe people with epilepsy or seizures, or just about yourself and your story?
Well, I think one of the things that I've kind of learned about people with epilepsy through myself is the fact that, because I never talked about it to anyone. Say there was a kid in my class who had epilepsy in high school, they wouldn't have known. Maybe they didn't know anyone who had it. And if I would have said something or mentioned it, then they'd be like, oh, wow, I do know someone who has it. Or if someone else in a class of mine did have it and, they never spoke of it and I didn't know, I would have felt like, oh, it's just me. So I feel like I've learned that speaking about it is good, because if everyone kept it to themselves, everyone would think they were the only one. And so I hope, from this podcast and through, Epilepsy Alliance Florida and all the other resources that are out there, people will be able to realize that it's not just them, that speaking about it is beneficial for myself, I think, because I get to say things that I've never said before. So it's beneficial to myself and beneficial to other people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, thank you for joining me.
Of
I really
course.
appreciate it, and getting to know you better and getting to know just a different story, different point of view.
Yeah.
And a lot of the same struggles that I deal with, that I know other people have dealt with epilepsy and seizures.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate it.
Of course. I'm really happy that I've been able to do this and kind of kick this off. And I'm looking forward to everything that this brings. And
keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing amazing. And people with epilepsy can be in jobs of government, actors, athletes, literally anything, and you're living proof of that.
Yeah.
So you're doing amazing.
Thank you. I will be off to my 6 hours straight of class after this. So
well, you enjoy that.
Yeah.
You enjoy that. I'm not gonna do that.
Great to be in class till 9 p.m. on Tuesday nights. But it's all towards the goal that I want to do.
And you're definitely going to achieve it. And I'm super excited to see what everybody thinks, what comes of this, and to see what guests I have on next, to hear what they have to say. I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, I know. There's so many great people in our group that everyone's so different. Everyone has such a different story. So I'm excited to hear a lot more about everyone else.
Super awesome and super grateful to have this opportunity to talk with people with epilepsy. And we're from Epilepsy Alliance Florida, and we're an organization for people with epilepsy and seizures, and we're both part of the YAC, the Youth Advocacy Council, and I'm super excited for the next episode.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Of course, yeah.